That's
on my
okay.
property.
That's
We're
okay.
live.
He goes, because it's a circle. He goes, because that's open down there. He goes, I could do that.
No, he doesn't have that right. I mean, unless it's in your deed that.
Oh, and so then I just I didn't go through there, I mowed, I let all the trees grow up, so it blocks it off now.
Hi Carol, can you hear us?
Cause I was like, I don't want
Yes, I
this.
can.
My kids are on
Awesome.
here.
Right.
Trying to call the Town of Troy Planning Board, open the meeting at 7:02. Present with myself, Matthew, Vice Chair, Denton, Secretary, Chris Hopkins, Dr. Draft, and Jerry
Thanks, Nino.
Gracino. Our order of business is the draft meeting minutes from May 7th, 2025.
And we are all shared on Facebook.
Awesome.
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
A second.
Okay, have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed. Next, we are open for public comment.
Ooh, calling me. So, you're too young to know, but that's from a TV show called Welcome Back to Connor. So, the reason that I'm here, other than my cable is out, is Selectman Hopkins has given you a rundown from the Senate Republicans on a bunch of bills that are coming before the House. And they're going to be relevant to coming from the state. These are both Senate and House bills that are likely to or have already been passed and signed. And I want to talk about that and your master plan. First of all, I met with the budget committee, which is one of my responsibilities as a selectman. We have our different portfolios, and mine includes the budget committee. You were there, Matt. And so the budget committee seems to be more adamant than ever on looking for a cost savings and a budget reduction. That's a different conversation with regard to that. The master plan that we have can be recertified. And I mean, it's great that we did a survey and we found that everybody hates the selectmen, like we didn't know. If we are not envisioning suddenly changing the master plan in the town to include a heliport or a shopping mall or something like that, if we're going to stay with essentially the same master plan we have, the most cost-effective thing that we can do is recertify it. Not having a properly certified master plan holds us up on a number of other issues, like building a CIP, which is critical for the financial future of the town. And I would tell you that, I mean, you may have, I don't know if you have a price from Southwestern, I mean, if it's any kind of significant money, it is not gonna be met with warm fuzzies by either the select board or the budget committee. And probably more so the budget committee who this particular go around. So I would strongly encourage you, perhaps when you have a fuller board, but you really should wrap your head around the idea of certifying the plan and making amendments as necessary going forward for the next period of time. So there's that first part. The second part is when you read these bills, and I would bring your attention to the section.
Excuse me, Dick, before you go on that, the certification process, is that a public hearing
I
or?
think it's a public hearing and it says, yeah, we're good. I mean,
Yeah, so
more
a
or
public
less.
process and
Yeah.
input.
Yeah.
Carol, right?
yeah, Carol can fill you in on that. So, I mean, it's not, I think it's a public hearing with very little more than notice and a motion in a second, and that's it. So the part, housing, fighting the housing crisis by cutting red tape, regulations to encourage responsible construction of more housing. There's more bills than this. I am on the housing committee. I can tell you that there are probably closer to 50 bills, which will likely pass. The impact, effectively it impacts zoning and planning. And many of the things that we accept as normal or are in our zoning, and when I say normal, things that have been in our zoning and most town zoning for decades, will simply be removed by an act of law. I'll give you a simple example. One is a requirement that allows you to have, requires that a town can say you have to have at least 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. Well, they're gonna change that to 1. That's a significant change. They're looking at one of the bills deals with mixed use housing. So we sit down here on the common in Troy, and there is in fact less than 1 parking unit, there's in fact less than 1 parking space per housing unit on this common, which is a bit of a problem. And right now, if you came to the planning board and said, I want to build a house, a property here, you would have a problem getting it approved. You'd have to, at the very least, have to go for a variance. Well, if this stuff passes as it's, if this stuff passes as it has been written and it's coming out of committee, it is highly likely that it doesn't matter what you think. This is how it's going to be. So the point of the story is, any zoning, you need to wait for this session of the House and then look at what zoning changes you need to make. And most of the laws that are coming through, you will see have an effective date of 1 year from the date of passage. And that keeps in mind the towns that have to adjust their zoning and go to town meeting and change their zoning. But it's a significant, these are genuinely significant changes. And I would think that the planning board would want to focus on that for the next 6 months so that you have your warrants ready to go into town meeting next year. So those were the 2 things I wanted to talk about. Is number 1, I think you need to really wrap your head around just certifying the existing plan and making spot changes if necessary. And number two, you need to, this is no joke. This came from the New Hampshire Senate Republicans. However, I can tell you that every one of these bills has broad-based bipartisan support. The people who are opposed to them are on both sides of the party. The people opposed to them are in both parties, and the people that back them are in both parties. The leadership of both parties strongly backs this agenda. I can't honestly say I agree with 100% of it, but in the world of real politics, I can tell you it's going to pass. A lot of it's going to pass tomorrow, and then the rest of it will pass in June. And most of it is going to pass on what's called the consent agenda, so it's not even going to be up for debate. It's going to pass in the first 5 minutes of the session, and everybody's going to say, they're going to call for approval of the consent agenda, and they're all going to go, yay, and it's done. So that's it. I'd be happy to, if you have questions about any one of the bills, I'd be happy to tell you what I know about them. But I kind of want to give you a heads up on that. I wouldn't spend a lot of time trying to fix something that's going to change, and relatively quickly. I'll give you a good example of the whole thing about parking, just that's relevant to us. So the Southwestern Community Services rebuilt the south. They tore down some warehouses and slums on the south end of the common on Water Street 25 years ago. And there's 15 dwelling units, which means you need 30 spaces. Well, in those 15 dwelling units, which are primarily, they're age restricted and income restricted. So you have a lot of limited income people over 55. There are, if you go there right now, 7 o'clock at night, if you count 6 cars, it's a lot. But they have 12 parking spaces in addition to the parking in front of the building. They're entitled to 12 parking spaces at the depot, which they clearly don't need. By the same token, if you look at 11 Central Square, which is that gray building over there, it has 0 parking spaces. And what you perceive as the paved driveway there actually doesn't belong to that building. It belongs to the building behind it and the building to the right of it. It was literally done 100 years ago, with a whole different conception. And in the case of, I'll use 11 Central Square again as an example, that is 2 2,200 square foot apartments. That's a big apartment. And our current zoning would not allow that to be converted into 4 units. If these laws pass, with the rules on, some of the new rules coming out from the state, you would reasonably be able to convert that into 4 units. You'd have 4 1,100 square foot apartments. So, and those are the kind of things that are happening. So, these are big changes coming. So you're gonna have plenty to do in terms of adjusting the warrant, and preparing your warrant for changes to make the zoning fit when it comes out of Concord in the next 6 weeks. But I think that's where you need to focus, other than the day-to-day grind of, looking at plans like I brought in last week or whatever. That's the kind of stuff you need to keep your head wrapped around. So, any questions for me?
I was just gonna say, I apologize for being late, but I was following on the live stream, so I didn't miss anything.
Just following up on the impact fees from last week, so we'd have to have a certified master plan in order to do those impact fees.
That is our understanding, and we have to have a CIP. And we have the vestiges of a CIP. And one of the things that, and we discussed the impact fees in the budget committee, and so, we can't pick a number out of the air, at least you're not supposed to. And it appears that almost every town that has impact fees has a different methodology. But it has to go to, so if we have $1,000 impact fee per unit, we have to say of that, 200 goes to the fire department, 200 goes to the, parks and recreation, whatever we're doing with it. And, but there has to be a CIP in place for that, so. And Ben Drug, in the budget committee meeting, I thought made a very good point. He said impact fees actually make a lot of sense, because if you're gonna build a bunch of new buildings and change the operating structure of the town, what's here, we already paid for and built without you. So it's kind of a matter of chipping in to cover the costs that we've already all borne.
Yeah.
And I really never thought of it quite that way, but that's what it really comes down to, so. Anything else?
Good.
Well, I thank you all for listening to me, and I wish you a quick and interesting meeting. But if you have to choose between the two, go for quick. Sometimes interesting is nuts. This is nowhere where you really want to go. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dick.
Yep.
So, we'll say we're looking at having to make zoning changes based on, changes to state law that, unlike last year, we should start earlier.
But we don't know what's gonna go on yet, we have to wait till next
Exactly.
week.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yes, absolutely start earlier so we can actually get everything.
One thing we learn about these changes, start planning and not coming up in December and saying, well, law changed.
Yeah, this is only some of them, I don't see them or us being able to cut. I mean, some of them, it's really not a cost to it, but the other ones there are. There was like probably 4 of them that I saw earlier today when I was going over it. I know the water sewer facility, that one was one of them. There was one for driveway permits. Speeding up the process or something like that.
SB 153.
Expediting the process for approving driveway permits. So that's gonna take away from those current projects that they currently have to out and do a driveway inspection. And I don't think we have an issue of taking very long doing ours. In the first place, I think John is actually on point with doing our driveway inspections, but if we get more building and everything and having to do brick driveway, there are a few of them though, just to be aware. That's good info to have.
Planning board also received, April, Southwest Regional Planning Commission highlights, if anyone.
2 more copies. You guys got sent 3 of them this month.
You wanna see it, Jim?
Sure.
I think that
It's
one
on
might
the-
be addressed to you.
Oh, all right. There you go.
Alrighty then, we're leading into correspondence, anything else?
Other than that, I don't think we had anything.
Wonderful. Upcoming training opportunities, did you send out an email for?
I've been getting a lot of Southwestern emails, and I just send those along. Their annual meeting is coming up.
Meeting on June 3rd, social at 5 p.m., program begins at 5:30 p.m. should show up with you by email. Okay. Any old business? Okay. 2025 work program. I don't know if we got a spreadsheet like we have the past couple of years.
Prioritizing?
Yeah, prioritizing, listing them out. That's something Carol usually,
Yeah.
Is Carol on tonight, or?
She is here.
Oh, okay. Could ask her.
I am here, and I'm just opening up so I can remind myself what we've been talking about. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Well, a couple of things, I mean, there's not really a lot right now that's, for zoning wise, that's, I think, really, burning. I think Dick is right, we need to wait and see what comes through the State House this year. There is one that has already passed, that has to do with ADUs, but that's not going to affect Troy, because the change is that, after July, towns will no longer be able to require a special exception or conditional use permit for them. It will be building permit only, but your ordinance already does that. So you won't have to do anything regarding that. Some of these other changes, if they do pass, we will have to have a look at the zoning for that, definitely. But, you know, the other things, I think the biggest thing right now is not zoning, it's the master plan. To Dick's comments about recertifying it, that's certainly, you know, the simplest and the cheapest way to go. And if you're not gonna get money from the budget committee or the voters, then I guess that's something that needs to be thought about. I think realistically, so you only need to have two sections legally. It's the vision section and the land use. The vision, I think, can be put together pretty easily from the survey work that was done. And, you know, that only needs to be a couple of pages, if that. You know, it's basically a statement of what the people want to see in the future. Updating the land use plan, typically you have a map to do that, so you're looking at the types of land uses, what they were in whatever it was, 2010, and what they are today. That would cost money, and you're probably not going to get that money, but it's still possible, I think, to do that by just, you know, looking at a map and knowing what's in town, what is happening where, and comparing that to the map that was done for the last master plan, and updating that. So I think it is doable, you know, without a huge effort. And, you know, I can participate to some extent in that, and that's not going to break your budget. So I think that's something we should probably think seriously about.
So you're saying with the budget we currently have, we can update that map and?
Well, not the map, Curtis. The planning commission would have to do the map, and I'm guessing that probably would be in the range of, I don't know, maybe hundreds and maybe up to 1,000, I don't know. You know, it hasn't been updated in quite a while. I guess I could ask Henry that question, what it would cost to update that map. But I think that you can still do it without the map. I mean, it wouldn't be as accurate, but you can still get a sense of what uses are going on in town, and you already know from the zoning map which hasn't changed, what is allowed to go where, and that's really, the biggest thing that you need to know about your future land use plan is deciding whether or not you're gonna change your zoning. So I do think it's doable. It wouldn't be, as robust as the plan you've got now. I mean, it would be, on the sparse side, but it would meet the legal requirements, and it would allow the town then to say, we have an adopted, up-to-date, required 2 sections of the master plan, so you can go ahead with, with your CIP and with applying for any grants for which having a master plan is required. Oh, and including if the selectmen want to pursue having an impact fee ordinance, the master plan is required.
Okay, I'm interested to see how much that costs. Yeah, I agree. I don't know what everybody else feels. I think if we can,
So that would be like a map showing like what each property is currently used as, or
They'd be reviewing the zoning districts, Carol, and making sure that they made sense relative to what's happening now.
Yeah, basically, Jack, what you do is, look at what's going on in town, where the uses are currently. That's why the map is really helpful, because, you can visualize it on paper and not have to do it in your head. And then you decide whether or not you think that any changes need to be made to the zoning map. Either to expand a district, or, for example, we've looked at the light industrial district, and Matt did a lot of research on that, and trying to decide whether or not that district makes sense anymore, because of the way the lots are. So those are the kinds of things that you would be making decisions about when you prepare your future land use plan. And again, it doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be complicated. And you might end up saying, we don't propose any changes to the zoning map. We think that the way the zoning ordinance is set up now, that it works for us. So that's our plan, is to.
The CIP or impact fees or grants or anything else, and putting them at risk, and then deciding what we can pick up. And I agree that if the vision's only a couple of pages and we've got the input from the survey, why not knock that off?
Cheryl, for populating a map, if they would be doing that with on the ground survey or looking at satellite imagery, or would it be basically just going off of stuff like the tax cards and existing data already tabulated?
loser. Say it louder, maybe? I don't know if she heard you.
Carol, do you know for they're updating the map if they would be doing that with like visual survey or whatever, or just going off of tabulated data like we have from the tax roll?
You think that sticks?
Yeah, Matt, I think these days that back in the dark ages, we used to drive around with colored pencils, and that's how we created the existing land use map. But I think these days, they start with the assessing data, and then the board has to just prove that and see if it makes sense. For example, one thing that I have run into in some towns, that the assessing database will classify, apartments as commercial use because they're being rented and someone's making money off of it. So obviously, you know, an apartment is not a commercial use. So those are the kinds of things that you have to just keep an eye out for, that, you know, when you look at that, at the map, when it takes that information and puts it on the map visually, and you see a whole bunch of red where you know it's not a commercial use, you know, then they go back and make the adjustments. But it is possible to do it from that, but you definitely have to carefully proof it. Because their categories aren't necessarily going to match the categories that we work with in planning.
No. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on master plan survey and promotion?
No, it sounds like you probably would pick it up when Mike and Kyle are back.
Sound good. We already took care of the bill tracking. Anything more on road safety that we want to touch base on? Take care of this.
Selectmen's update is, we're having our Memorial Day parade on Monday. You'll be, stepping off or getting ready and lining up at 10:15 at the Troy School. And be starting at 10:30, doing the normal walk from the school to the common. From the common, there'll be speeches. It looks like the Civil Air Patrol will be doing their, 21 gun salute. And, from there, they're gonna move to down to the depot, and the rec department will be given free hamburgers and hot dogs for those in attendance if you're interested. The selectmen will be reimbursing them. Dylan Gray and Dave Ellis have been actually working very hard on getting this done this year. So look forward to seeing everybody out there, and if you're participating or will be walking in it or whatever. Good luck, and I'll see you there. So, other than that, the selectmen's next meeting is not until the 29th. We are not meeting tomorrow. Or we didn't meet last week because we were all out of, I was on military and TJ was out of state, so. Next meeting I think is the 29th. Just to verify, yeah, the 29th. So, that's all I got. I don't think there's anything updates for anything else.
No, on the 29th, you're gonna be talking about that traffic flow around Prospect Street and.
A little bit, yeah, we're having a hearing about that, yeah. Yeah. We got a couple other things going on. I haven't got the actual agenda yet, what everything's doing, or I'd read it, but we don't have that yet. Jeremy's still working it, but our big thing right now that we're focusing on is the Memorial Day parade, so.
Okay.
One more thing, sorry, dog licenses, if you haven't registered your dog, licensed your dog with the town, you will be getting a letter in the mail, and, late fees and so on and so forth, and the town can bring you to court, just so you know. I'll be reading a paper from the town clerk, at our next meeting, getting more detail, but after our June 1st, or our June meeting, it's gonna take effect and the selectmen are gonna be voting on it, so. We had over 200 people, or 200 dogs that weren't licensed. I think it's down closer to like 130 now that are not licensed. But there's people coming in throughout the day and doing it, so hopefully, we can get 100%. That'd be a first time in a long time. Or ever, first time ever, so. Register your dogs, please. It's actually a state law. That's all I got.
not expecting any to go into non-public. Our next meeting, June 4th. Here, 7 o'clock. And that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
You gotta make a motion first. He says he'll entertain one, so so the chair, just so you guys know, the chair usually doesn't make the motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I second it.
There you go.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah,
Opposed?
7:38.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Oh,
Not our fastest meeting, but it's still